There's a moment in life when you pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this the right time to retire? Maybe you've been working for decades, raising a family, building a career, and now you're wondering if it's finally time to step back and enjoy the fruits of all that hard work. Well, what if I told you that research suggests this might just be the perfect age to retire? Not too early, not too late, but right where you are now. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what about money? What about staying active? What if I get bored? Those are all valid questions, and we'll talk about them. But here's the thing, retirement isn't just about leaving a job. It's about stepping into a new chapter where you get to decide how you spend your time, energy, and passion. And believe it or not, science says this stage of life can be one of the most fulfilling. So let's talk about why this might be the ideal time for you to retire and how you can make the most of it. First, let's talk about timing. Research from Harvard and other leading institutions has found that retiring in your early to mid-60s can actually be better for your health and happiness than pushing yourself to work longer. Why? Because this is the age where you're likely still healthy enough to enjoy travel, hobbies, and time with loved ones. But you're also wise enough to appreciate it. Think about it, when you're in your 50s, you might still feel the pressure to climb the career ladder, but by your 60s, you've seen enough of life to know what truly matters. You start valuing experiences over promotions, relationships over deadlines, and that shift in mindset, that's golden. Now let's talk about health. One of the biggest fears people have about retirement is that they'll slow down, lose purpose, or even decline faster. But studies show the opposite can be true if you approach retirement the right way. When you retire at this age, you're giving yourself the gift of time to exercise, cook nourishing meals, and reduce stress. No more rushing through meals at your desk or sacrificing sleep for overtime. Instead, you can focus on moving your body in ways that feel good, whether it's walking in nature, swimming, or even dancing around the living room. And here's the best part. People who retire at this stage often report more energy, not less, because they're finally listening to their bodies instead of pushing through exhaustion. And then there's money. I know finances are a huge concern, and we'll dive deeper into this later. But for now, consider this. By your 60s, you've likely paid off major expenses like your mortgage or your kids' education. You've had decades to save, and Social Security or pensions are now within reach. That doesn't mean you stop being careful with money, but it does mean you might have more flexibility than you think. So if you've been on the fence about retirement, here's my question for you. What's one thing you've always wanted to do but never had the time for? Because that's what this next chapter is all about. Now let's talk about how to make this transition smooth and joyful. Because retirement isn't just about stopping work, it's about starting something even better. You've probably heard the saying, retirement isn't the end of the road, it's the beginning of a new adventure. And you know what? That couldn't be more true. But here's the key. The difference between a fulfilling retirement and one that feels empty often comes down to how you approach it. So let's talk about how to make sure your retirement isn't just comfortable, but truly exciting. One of the biggest myths about retirement is that life slows down too much, that days start to blur together, and before you know it, you're stuck in a rut. But that only happens if you let it. The truth is, retirement is your chance to design your days exactly how you want them. Think about it. When was the last time you had complete control over your schedule? No alarm clocks, no meetings, no deadlines, unless you want them. That kind of freedom is rare, and it's something to celebrate. So how do you make the most of it? Let's start with purpose. A study from the Journal of Happiness Studies found that retirees who replaced work with meaningful activities, whether volunteering, mentoring, or diving into a passion project, were happier than those who saw retirement as just a time to relax. That doesn't mean you have to fill every minute with busy work. It just means finding something that lights you up. Maybe it's finally writing that book you've been thinking about for years. Or maybe it's teaching your grandkids how to bake your famous apple pie. It could even be as simple as joining a local gardening club or birdwatching group. The point is, when you have something to look forward to, retirement stops feeling like an ending and starts feeling like a whole new beginning. Now, let's talk about social connections. One of the biggest risks of retirement isn't financial, it's loneliness. When you leave a job, you also leave behind daily interactions with coworkers, clients, or even just the barista who knows your coffee order. And if you're not careful, days can start to feel a little too quiet. But here's the good news. Retirement gives you the time to nurture relationships in a way you might not have been able to before. Instead of squeezing family visits into weekends or holidays, you can be the grandparent who's there for school plays and soccer games. Instead of catching up with friends over rushed lunches, you can plan leisurely trips together, and if your social circle has shrunk over the years, this is the perfect time to expand it. Community centers, senior groups, and even online forums are full of people just like you, looking for connection and camaraderie. And then there's learning. You might think your learning years are behind you, but retirement is actually the best time to pick up new skills. Why? Because now, you're learning purely for joy, not for a degree or a promotion. Always wanted to play the piano? There's no better time than now. Curious about painting, photography, or even podcasting? Go for it. Research shows that learning new things keeps your brain sharp, boosts confidence, and even helps prevent cognitive decline. Plus, it's just plain fun. Imagine waking up each day with the chance to explore something new. How exciting is that? Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what if I try something new and I'm not good at it? Here's the beautiful thing about retirement. It doesn't matter. This isn't about being the best. It's about enjoying the process. Remember when you were a kid, and you'd try things just for the fun of it? That's the spirit we're bringing back. So let's keep going, because there's still so much more to explore about making retirement your greatest adventure yet. You know, there's something truly special about this stage of life, a kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and what matters most. And that's exactly what makes retirement at this age so powerful. You're not just walking away from something, you're stepping into the life you've earned. So let's talk about how to make these years your richest yet, in every sense of the word. One of the most beautiful aspects of retirement is the chance to slow down and savor. Think about it. How many sunrises did you miss because you were rushing to work? How many afternoons slipped by without a moment to just sit with a cup of tea and watch the birds? Now you get to reclaim those small sacred moments. And here's the surprising thing. Research shows that people who practice mindfulness, simply being present in everyday moments, report higher levels of happiness in retirement. It's not about grand gestures, it's about appreciating the ordinary magic you may have overlooked before. That morning light through the kitchen window, the sound of rain on the porch, the way your favorite sweater feels cozy against your skin. These are the moments that add up to a deeply contented life. Now let's address something practical but incredibly important, your home space. For many, retirement is the perfect time to create an environment that truly supports your well-being. Maybe that means finally turning that spare room into the art studio you've always dreamed of. Or perhaps it's as simple as rearranging your living room so your favorite chair gets the best sunlight for reading. Some people even choose to downsize, not just to save money, but to free themselves from the burden of maintaining a house that's bigger than they need. The key is to ask yourself, does my space reflect who I am now and how I want to live? Because your home should be your sanctuary, a place that inspires and comforts you in equal measure. And let's not forget giving back. One of the most fulfilling ways to spend retirement is sharing your hard-earned wisdom with others. Whether it's volunteering at a local school, mentoring young professionals in your former field, or simply being the person in your neighborhood who always has time to listen, your life experience is a gift that only grows more valuable when you pass it on. Studies from Stanford's Center on Longevity found that retirees who engage in regular volunteer work report better physical health and a stronger sense of purpose. It turns out that helping others might be one of the best things you can do for yourself. Now that we've explored why this is such a special time to retire and how to approach this new chapter with excitement, let's talk about how to actually make it happen. Because dreaming about retirement is one thing, turning those dreams into reality is where the magic really begins. You might be sitting there thinking, this all sounds wonderful, but how do I get from where I am now to that ideal retirement? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover now. The good news? You don't need to make all these changes overnight. In fact, the most successful retirements are built gradually, one thoughtful step at a time. Let's start with what I call financial peace of mind. Now, I'm not going to bombard you with complicated investment strategies. That's not what this is about. What matters most is having a clear picture of where you stand and making small adjustments that add up to big security. One powerful exercise is to sit down with all your financial information: Social Security statements, pension details, savings accounts, and create what I call a retirement snapshot. This isn't about stressing over numbers. It's about understanding your baseline so you can make informed decisions. Many people find that when they actually look at everything together, they're in better shape than they thought. But here's something even more important than dollars and cents: your retirement mindset. How you think about this transition will shape your experience more than any bank balance ever could. Try this for 1 week. Keep a retirement journal. Each day, write down one thing you're looking forward to in retirement, and one concern you have. At the end of the week, look for patterns. Are your worries mostly about practical matters you can plan for, or are they more emotional, like fearing you'll lose your sense of purpose? This simple exercise can reveal exactly where you need to focus your preparation. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked aspects of retirement planning: your daily rhythm. After decades of set schedules, suddenly having complete freedom can feel disorienting at first. That's why I recommend creating a flexible framework. Not a rigid schedule, but gentle guidelines for how you might structure your days. Maybe Tuesday mornings are for volunteering, Thursday afternoons for grandkids, and Friday evenings for date night. The key is to balance structure with spontaneity. Enough routine to feel grounded, but enough flexibility to say yes to unexpected opportunities. One of the most powerful things you can do as you approach retirement is what I call skill stacking. This means identifying all the talents you've developed over your lifetime, both professional and personal, and thinking about new ways to use them. That project management skill from your job? It could help you organize community events. Your knack for fixing things? Maybe it's time to start that small handyman service you've always joked about. When you view your skills as tools, rather than just job requirements, whole new possibilities open up. Here's something else to consider. Your retirement bucket list doesn't have to wait until your last day of work. In fact, starting some of those activities now can make the transition much smoother. Always wanted to take up golf? Join a weekend league while you're still working. Dream of traveling? Start with long weekends to nearby destinations. This pre-retirement phase lets you test drive your interests while still having the security of your job. As we wrap up this final section, I want to leave you with one last thought: your retirement is uniquely yours. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Maybe your perfect retirement involves starting a small business. Maybe it's finally having time to read every book on your shelf. Perhaps it's simply waking up each morning and deciding in that moment what the day will bring. What matters most is that you give yourself permission to design a retirement that brings you joy, meaning, and fulfillment. You've spent a lifetime meeting expectations. Now it's time to create a chapter that's all about what matters to you. I'd love to hear in the comments: what's one small step you'll take this week toward your ideal retirement? And if you've found this series helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit, because everyone deserves to look forward to this exciting new chapter. Here's to your retirement, being everything you've dreamed of, and more. May it be filled with discovery, connection, and the deep satisfaction of a life well lived. Remember, the best is yet to come.